Macaulay Mountain Ski Area was the host for the 2025 Longest Day Adventure Race, and our accommodations were quite spacious, the entire base lodge. While the mountain and surrounding areas were socked in with fog in the early hours, the skies would brighten and clear for the 9 a.m. start time. In a remote parking lot surrounded by wilderness, the 24-hour adventure race started off with a sprint. This short trek, consisting mostly of optional points, would be a warm-up loop for the long bike leg to come next. While some will only visit the mandatory points here, the fast teams are attempting to clear this section. This is only a preview of the area's terrain, though. 2 more treks await, and the difficulty will only increase. Course photographer Ashley Cheney spoke with several teams as they completed this first leg.
We're thinking, depending on how quickly we're moving at the beginning, that we might go for A4 and maybe even 6, which is a bunch of elevation, but it's basically a trail. So, because it sounded like the next trek may be less pleasant.
I think our goal is to fly through the beginning stuff, get the bike out of the way, and try to get the treasure trove of checkpoints all at the very end.
Where are you guys heading first?
2, I believe.
Called 2.
A2.
Yeah.
A2.
The top of the hill.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful. Not far. Hey, hey.
Hello.
You guys went along the river, huh?
Sure did.
Wanna tell me why you made that decision and how it went?
I'll tell you why we made it, because we don't know any better. It's our first time ever doing this.
But you guys got here.
We got here, so, took the scenic route.
How was it, dense?
Super dense.
Some sections, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well,
But
go get
hey,
your
we made it.
checkpoint. You
Super
earned
happy
it.
to be here.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Still
Thanks
good
so
spirit.
much.
Frontrunners at this point of the race included familiar favorites Rootstock Racing and Enabled Tracking, who both cleared the first leg before quickly entering and exiting the transition area. The next stage would be a long wilderness gravel route that took teams out to the remote transition area 2. Leg B had the racers on their bikes for a 44-mile route through the gravel roads of the Moose River Wild Forest. This route overlaps with the course for the epic gravel bike race, the Blackfly Challenge. The undulating roads make for punchy climbs, and the large embedded rocks provide extra spice for the descents. Punctuated by one major climb, the route eases off toward the conclusion as teams head toward the town of Inlet, New York. The breakaway teams Rootstock Racing and Enabled Tracking have already put more distance between themselves and the field on this leg as they hit the gas and settled into a pace line together for nearly the entire route.
All good. Good weather, good roads. Rock and roll.
If a 44-mile rolling gravel route weren't enough of a challenge for teams, the race provided an extremely difficult orienteering section situated about 2/3 of the way through leg B. Racers who were exhausted from the bike leg would find themselves in thickly vegetated forest land with faint or non-existent trails. The northern section of this roughly 15-mile loop was particularly challenging. Many teams spent several hours here searching for checkpoints, only to come up empty.
The idea is to get like half the points here and be back by 9. And we'll see if we can make that happen. We think if we do that, then we can probably get the rest of them on the course in time. But it'll be tight at the end there with all the mountain bike points.
At the front of the field, top navigators were doing top navigator things, though. Rootstock Racing, led by navigator Nikki Driscoll, made swift and efficient work of the southern portion of Leg C, and made a strategic decision to leave some of the most remote points on the northern loop out on the course. Enabled Tracking tackled the northern loop of this trek first, opting to immediately attack the tougher terrain while there was still ample daylight. By the end of the stage, Rootstock had taken the lead in total points by 4 CPs, as Enabled Tracking made the tough decision to leave Leg C and Transition Area 3 early. That decision would give enabled tracking a time advantage of 22 minutes over Rootstock going into the next transition area. With the 44-mile mandatory bike route and the optional 15-mile maximum difficulty orienteering trek behind the field, teams were starting to feel the burn.
Happy to be off the bikes.
Yes.
We're having fun.
We are definitely having fun.
Apart from some teams who made the decision to leave Stage C early, most of the field would arrive at Transition Area 4 in the dark of night. In front of them was another mandatory trek with several optional points along the way. While the trails here were somewhat easier to follow, there was plenty of elevation to gain and opportunity for mistakes in the darkness. Of the two teams fighting for the Premier Co-Ed Division win, Team Enabled Tracking arrived at Transition Area first, roughly 22 minutes before Rootstock Racing. Rootstock would make up 7 of those minutes in the transition area alone, as Enabled Tracking spent 15 minutes changing to trek gear to Rootstock's blistering 8-minute transition in the same spot. The two teams would be racing back and forth for nearly the entire leg, making and losing time with subtle navigation decisions. By the end of the leg, Rootstock had erased their time deficit and jumped out ahead of Enabled Tracking by 14 minutes at Transition Area 5, still with 4 checkpoints in hand. As teams finally made their way into Transition Area 5 at a bridge crossing of the North Branch Moose River, many were racing right on the edge of their capacity.
How we doing?
Ahead of them would be a roughly 11-mile paddle down a winding river with only a modest current. One team, RVA Racing, made up of Philip and Robin Dawson, had other ideas though. Seeing that the distance to cover as the crow flies was only a fraction of the paddle distance, this team opted to use their portage wheels to run the entire paddle leg. Their boat never touched the water as they rolled it past the river, only stopping to collect the 2 checkpoints on Leg E, which were conveniently located at bridge crossings. For the rest of the field, it would be a long, cold paddle through thick fog that reduced visibility to near zero. Those teams with highly experienced paddlers were able to use the conditions to make big gains in the field. One such team, Tug Hill Outfitters, made the most efficient work of the paddle leg, arriving at the final transition area second, only behind the team who rolled their boats along the road. Rootstock Racing were able to extend their lead at the front of the field, going into the final bike section at Macaulay Mountain, while Team AR Insider were making moves with their eyes on the podium. All teams knew at the beginning of the race that they would need to save time at the end to collect as many checkpoints as they could on the mountain bike trails close to the finish. The trails at Macaulay Mountain contained the densest concentration of available points of any leg on the course. With time dwindling and the looming threat of late penalties, teams had to make tough choices here on which points were attainable and which could be left on the course. And in a heroic late push, Team AR Insider, made up of Carol Witherell, Kate Bloom, and Derek Allison, drew on their reserves to attack some additional points, earning them a second-place finish by just 1 checkpoint over Enabled Tracking. With a solid plan and a strong showing on the course, Team Rootstock Racing took the overall win with 37 checkpoints in 24 hours, 29 minutes, and 30 seconds. And while the full course proved unclearable, all the teams made it to the finish under their own power.